Right, it is hard not to talk about Aston Villa as runners in the race for the title. 10 wins in their last 11 Premier League games. Next up, Manchester United at Villa Park as well. Fresh from their 8-goal thriller against Bournemouth.
Stage set for Buendia. Oh, the glorious free kick. Onana to unleash. The uncertain early days of the season look well and truly behind them. Harry Maguire! Manchester United prize the lead back at Anfield again. This isn't just a win, this is a big scalp. Rodgers with the lead from behind. Ramos in. Boubacar Camara, what a hit. Brilliant strike from the edge. Onana got to that one. The turnaround is complete. It's Dalot. Aston Villa formidable and dreaming of Champions League football again.
Ruben Amorim seems to be turning things around.
Is this to be the night where they make their move up the Premier League table?
So it could be a cracking game, this one. Unai Emery spoke about the need to continue to be consistent.
Always we are ready to work better and more to improve things. And when speaking about our demands is try to analyze each match deeply, and even winning, playing and performing well collectively and individually, we can get better. And this is our demand. And of course, how we can be consistent is our priority, and our priority is to win on Sunday, knowing and respecting them and being humble.
Darren Lewis, the voice of football, the voice of team talks, the face of team talks. Here's my first big question for you, my friend. Should we be considering Aston Villa as serious title contenders?
I'm surprised we're not, because they have momentum, which is what you need to be a team in a title race. They've got a manager who is used to dealing with the big occasion, with teams that are underrated, clubs that are underrated. Think about what he did with Villarreal. Think about what he did with Sevilla, winning the old UEFA Cup, which we now call the Europa League. And he's a guy who improves players that he works with. And when you look at Villa, when you look at what they did in the cup competitions last season, when you look at where he picked them up from as well, near the relegation zone, outside the relegation zone on goal difference, undefeated at home since the end of August, 10 wins from their last 11 in the Premier League, 9 wins in a row in all competitions. How can you not look at a side like that with the momentum they have, their goal-scoring ability? You cannot shut one player down and believe you have stopped Aston Villa. And I think when you look at this game and you look at the fact that Manchester United have got 1 clean sheet all season, you called it a 8-goal thriller. It was an 8-goal exhibition of why Manchester United are a spent force at the moment. The numbers around them are supposed to be positive, totally unrepresentative of how much of a mess they are. They are the complete opposite to Aston Villa.
So are they in the race, Glenn? I mean, here's another question. Has the race even started after 16 games?
Yeah, I think that's more the question. What I would say is that they're in the conversation, and it's kind of the face-off at the minute before the title race begins. But when I look at what Emery's done, it's super impressive. Brought a couple of on-loan stars in towards the end of last season, and they left, Asensio and Rashford, obviously. And I feel as though over the summer there wasn't much squad churn. There was a bit of worry. Maybe things have gone stagnant at Aston Villa. The first 5 games suggested that. But for a manager to be able to kind of handle that situation, that pressure, that expectation on the group, and then go on a run like he has now, I think he's fantastic. And also, you mentioned when he came in, they didn't have an identity.
No.
He gave him identity.
Absolutely.
Ollie Watkins wasn't scoring goals at this point in Aston Villa shirt. Now he's made him an England number 9. So he just shows...
And actually, he's had a poor season numbers-wise by his standard. If they are where they are, if he starts clicking in...
Well, that's the point, you see. He is not scoring goals as regularly as we expect him to, and yet other players are stepping up, taking responsibility. Emery has solved the defensive problems that they've had, because at the start of the season they couldn't basically keep clean sheets, but now they are imposing themselves on the opposition sides. But I want to make a more general point, because you know, I work in an industry that shapes opinion, and very often a big part of the reason why you would ask a question is because we are used to the superpowers contesting the title. Arsenal, Liverpool, City, the clubs with the cash. And we're not used to someone coming up on the rail. So when a Leicester does it, we think, oh my gosh, or an Aston Villa, which is a mid-ranking side. Everybody knows the history of Aston Villa. And I think we need to condition ourselves into not assuming it's always going to be the clubs.
You know, they've still spent 50 million on Onana, Watkins. Over the years,
yeah, but in relative terms, their spending is nowhere near. And if you think about the summer, they had to sacrifice players. They couldn't go into the market.
Jacob Ramsey going to Newcastle.
Exactly. And they would have wanted to go into the market and buy players that would have enabled them to keep a Rashford, to keep other players who they otherwise would not have had to sort of go to other clubs and say, we can't get involved in the bidding for that.
Do you know what I think also that they've got in this ingredients, if we're talking about potential title contenders, is that ability to come from behind? I know it's a simple thing, but like I was at your old club, Brighton, when was that? A couple of weeks ago, it was a Wednesday night.
2-0 down.
They were 2-0 down. They got it back in the last second of added time in the first half, and then ended up winning 4-3. You know, they did the same against West Ham at the weekend, didn't they? And you look at their bench, or the finishers as now people call them, there's Champions League players on that bench. Donyell Marlon coming off there, and they've got the squad. So what, you know, if they are lacking anything, Glenn, what is it with a manager like Emery?
Well, I think what he says is consistency. He doesn't want to go in behind in games. He does build character and he builds togetherness without doubt in a squad. But when I look at Aston Villa, what I really like, so they had kind of a streamlined attack a couple of years ago with Duran and Watkins. And when one wasn't firing, the other one was firing. And when one was playing, the other one was putting pressure on to start games. I feel as though they're getting back to that now with Marlon and Watkins. And then obviously we've just shown Morgan Rogers there, and what a super
the West Ham.
talent.
By the way, it's 15 points from losing positions,
which is a good thing. Which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing when you're talking about title contenders. You want to be controlling games more, and I think I was really interested to hear what Unai Emery said there about being humble, because when they're getting a lot of plaudits at the minute, we talk about the last 10 games and what they've done, and are they in a title race? Well, now is what matters.
Well, I mean, that's the run, isn't it? I mean, the green is what we should be looking at, because I think as far as they are concerned, they've beaten the lower ranking sides.
Only lost the champions on that list.
They've only lost to the champions, and I think I agree with everything that you're saying. I think that ability, what they've got to now cut out is the falling behind. They've got to cut out the conceding of the goals. I totally agree with that. But again, I think having that best comeback record in the Premier League will serve them well, because one of the other characters you need in a side competing, not just for a title, but for cups, is character. And that's what, listen, I have to defer to you on that, because that's what you need if you are going to be a side that is going to aspire to being in the business end of the conversation.
And the guy that spearheads that is Unai Emery, who we should be giving flowers to, right? I mean, where does he sit, do you think, Glenn, in terms of why are you smiling, why are you grinning?
Because I'm looking forward to the question.
Well, no, you know where I'm going with this. I think, for example, if in a completely another world that Unai Emery left Aston Villa, there would be clubs, would there not, of the size of Real Madrid and Barcelona and Manchester United potentially down the road. I mean, look at the job he's done. That Darren touched it about 5 minutes or so ago. Steven Gerrard came in after Dean Smith, and the club was at a pretty low ebb at that stage. Look at what he's picked up, the pieces that he's picked up, and where he has taken them to in the Champions League, the squad that he's assembled. And here we are 3 years later, now talking about them as contenders, quite rightly.
I think he's been regarded as an elite manager in European football, without doubt. When you mention the names you mentioned there, the top clubs, I definitely think there will be a lot of interest when Unai Emery does decide to leave Aston Villa. Listen, he had a little spell at Arsenal, didn't he? And that was kind of his first chance at a big Premier League club, and it didn't quite go to plan. Listen, I don't think that kind of it coincided with money being at Arsenal. There was the building of the Emirates just off the back of that. So
and he was the man after the man, wasn't he?
He was the man after the man, and it wasn't a great time to take that appointment. So I think a lot of people disregarded him from that, even though he got them to a European final. Whereas now, I feel as though he's re-established himself, rebuilt his career.
And sorry to interrupt you there, and he was made a bit of a joke figure, let's face it, so unfairly, because of his use of the English language.
And the irony of that is he's a guy who is multilingual. You know, this is a highly intelligent guy, very skilled. He's worked in lots of different countries because he has that skill set. So the idea that you would deride him for his linguistic skills is laughable. I think the interesting thing about the graphic we just saw is that if you take out PSG, Sevilla and Villarreal were both underrated sides. Villarreal in particular, they were a side with made up of players that other Premier League clubs didn't want. And yet he was able to achieve success with them. And if you look at Aston Villa, they're clearly not a side of cast-offs, but they are an underrated side. And I think he likes it best when he is in charge of a side that doesn't have that much expectation.
Unfortunately, when you do it at sides like that, that's when the big guys come knocking. And I think personally now he's primed for a top job. After that stint at Arsenal, after what he's done in the interim, and we can see what he's won, I feel now...
Can I ask you though, Glenn, would you think he would want to go to a top club? And second of all, what does constitute a top job? Because he can do what he likes at Aston Villa. They know what they have, so he gives him. They give him that freedom. If you go to a top club,
he didn't have much
they don't necessarily
play this summer.
Well, no, that was because of their financial constraints. It was nothing to do with him wanting a player and them saying you can't have it. It was basically you can have. Is it better to be at a club where you're going to play every week, or a club where you've got competition? Is it better to be a manager where you can do what you like, or go to a club where, you've got constraints? You can't go and get that player. There's a committee, there's a chief scout, there's a tech director. There's all these people who say, no, we don't want that player. We want to get this higher caliber player.
I think any professional, whether it's a player or a manager in the game, wants to manage or play at the highest level they can. And whether that's a Real Madrid, whether that's a Manchester United, bringing them back to fruition, I think that is the key of being able to put yourself at that elite stature of winning the highest trophies, the biggest trophies, and managing without constraint. Yeah, he does a brilliant job for Aston Villa, but I suppose the big question mark is what could he do with an infinite amount of funds? And do you know what I mean? Like, being able to go out the transfer market, get who he wants, build his own team effectively. And that is always the draw.
I'm a romantic. I would love Aston Villa from start.
Well, this is what I want to ask you very quickly, literally one-word answers on this. So fast forward another 16 games. Are we still hot on them being in the race? Are they within touching distance?
I think they could stay
in April, May.
I think they could stay. They could be around it. I don't think they'll win it, but I think they could stay around it.
In the mix still, Glenn?
In the mix.
Ooh. And of course, facing Manchester United this weekend at Villa Park, Ruben Amorim shared his thoughts on Bruno Fernandes's interview and Kobbie Mainoo's brother's message, which he displayed on a T-shirt.
That he spoke with the club before that interview, and he said what he's feeling. Of course, we can avoid these things because we already know the noise. But he talked with the board, and I think everything is clear. I think he is an example that he gives everything. He puts everything on the line in every training, in every match. In that department, is special. So I think he has that feeling. We need to step up and to have also that feeling. No, it was not Kobbie that wear the T-shirt. He's not going to start because of the T-shirt, but he's not going to the bench because of the T-shirt. He's going to play if we feel that he's the right guy.
So, guys, what's your reaction there to Ruben Amorim talking? I mean, firstly, on Bruno Fernandes, what's your whole take of this story? Bruno Fernandes obviously spoke to Canal 11, did an interview. Coincidentally, it's international break. That's where all the things happen, isn't it?
It's a PR war. I work in the media. We're all in the media. And Fernandes is saying one thing, United is saying another. It had been around in the summer that there were Saudi clubs willing to buy him. He is saying, yes, they wanted me. And he knows that he has been the most productive player at the club in the last 3 to 4 seasons.
Well, exactly. Where would they be down without him over the last 2 seasons, for
Absolutely. Well, they'd be in the bottom reaches, possibly.
In the relegation battle.
In the relegation battle last season. So he understands how to play up his value and to maybe get people appreciating. Maybe he's after a long-term contract. That's just my opinion. I don't know that to be the case. But it's interesting because United are contradicting everything he's saying and saying, we want to keep him, we're not going to let him go. But then this is United who were saying in the summer, we don't want to let Kobbie Mainoo go, we want to keep him. Now they say it would take an exceptional offer to let him go. So who do you believe?
Well, and also out of this interview, it emerged reportedly that Bruno's wife had basically questioned him one day and said, look, if you did leave Old Trafford, would you be happy with your lot there and what you'd achieved? And he sort of reflected on it and thought, an FA Cup and a League Cup, no. So what is within his grasp as United captain, especially when you look at how long he's been there, how many games he's played? He's hardly missed a game, Glenn.
Yeah, I mean, he has been the driving force. Whether he's the person to continue to take Manchester United on, I don't think you can disregard his quality and what he has done in the Manchester United shirt in what has effectively been a bad era for the football club. But when I get a look at him, I don't know if he leads by example. You're surrounded by a lot of young men. There's a lot of arm waving, which
from him.
Yes, which can be confidence destroying for people that are stepping into Manchester United. It's hard enough, I think, pulling that shirt on. I think he's revelled in being the kind of the one that everyone looks towards. But whether that is going to be the future, I'm very
So good. I'm interested, just because two slightly different answers. I mean, in terms of his quality, for example, do you think that Bruno Fernandes gets, or Darren, do you think Bruno Fernandes gets in every Premier League side?
No.
Based on what you've seen this season?
No, I don't. I think he's a terrific player. The numbers bear that out. But I'm with Glenn. I think there are elements of his game. There is too much arm waving. There is too much losing his cool when the chips are down. A colleague of mine pointed out that a lot of his yellow cards tend to come within the shadow of half time. If United are behind and he's waving his arms and he's complaining
I agree with the arm waving, but this season, do you think that's still happening? I think he's emerging more of a leader.
You're closing the parameters up. The bottom line is his quality good enough to get into every
most
side?
Assists and most chances created this season. That's
most
the stat.
Most sides. But if you look at sides like Arsenal, if you look at sides like Manchester City, I would even argue Liverpool. I don't think Liverpool would slot.
You wouldn't get him. You wouldn't put him in this season instead of Florian Wirtz.
Hypothetical. An outstanding footballer who was part of a side that
this season. What we've seen in a Liverpool shirt.
Yeah, but Liverpool don't listen. Liverpool look at the longer term. They don't look at the short term. They don't look at what you've done over 3 or 4 months. They look at what you've done over 2 or 3 years. And that's what Florian Wirtz has done. So I think it's a very reductive argument to say, would he get in?
But my point is saying that he's always amongst the top goal scorers for his club, and actually assists, he's right at the top of the charts from all 20 Premier League clubs.
And that's why he's a fantastic player. But I think it doesn't help anyone to go to extremes. And I think that's what you're doing. Every Premier League club. It doesn't help him, doesn't help the clubs either.
So Manchester United's future.
It doesn't.
No, but he's 31. So what you're saying, Manchester United's future is away from Bruno Fernandes. And again, we started this conversation, didn't we? Because of the Saudi talk from last summer, and he's basically saying he's hurt by the fact that Manchester United considered even selling him.
Well, I can understand it from a player's point of view. You want to be loved by the football club you represent, and ultimately, the football club that he's given his best years to, who haven't been in a position that Manchester United used to being in. So he feels as though he's almost sacrificed a lot of his good years at Manchester United, trying to get them back to the stature that they once were. But I can also see it from a football club's point of view, where he's in his 30s. You're not going to get that much money from him in the future, I don't think, from a European club. Saudi is where the money is. So, and he's not going to effectively be the future Manchester United. So I can understand from a financial point of view of Manchester United, you cash in while you can. You live it 2 more years, that money probably isn't going to be there.
Here's a question for former player Glenn Murray. Let's just say you're at Crystal Palace and your brother has made up this invisible brother. He wears a T-shirt which says "Free Glenn Murray" when you're not playing in the Palace team. Would you be angry with your brother at doing that if it wasn't sort of premeditated? What would you read into this whole Cobby Main?